In this video, we're talking about how a radar gun or radar equipment works in a criminal case. In most situations, people get stopped for speeding or for some sort of a traffic violation. Those are civil charges. But when they become criminal, a whole separate set of rules apply. It's a whole different ballgame. In Arizona, speeding can be criminal. It's a very common offense. It's called criminal speeding. Other offenses like reckless driving, racing, exhibition of speed, these are all criminal offenses. And so if an officer used a radar gun in charging that crime, we have to make sure that we are looking at all of the different potential defenses, all of the different requirements that an officer needs to meet in order to get that evidence admitted against you. So let's take a quick look and let's back up and have a brief understanding of how a radar gun or radar equipment works. So I have here 3 different diagrams. We have the radar gun and we have a vehicle. Radar works according to a principle called the Doppler Effect. You probably know what this is from 7th grade science, or you've heard it in the real world. It's that effect that when something is moving and there is a wave in between a point of origin and something that's moving, that wave will differentiate. It will elongate or it will condense based upon that movement. So in the real world, you may have heard this when an ambulance is approaching you or a police car. In this case, it may have been a police car. When a police car is coming up to you and you hear the siren, when it's coming up closer to you, you hear the siren go faster and faster. You hear wee, 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 wee. When it passes you, you'll hear that slow down, so it'll go wee, 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 woo, 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 as it's going past you. That's because as it's approaching you, the sound wave is condensing. It's emitting a noise, and that sound wave is coming to your ear, and the vehicle is coming closer to you, so that sound wave is being compressed. As it's leaving you, the sound wave is elongating because the origin of that sound is going farther and farther away from you. And so that sound is changing the sound. The pitch, the volume is changing, and it's going as it's going away from you. Radar works sort of along the same principles, actually exactly along the same principles. You have a radar gun, and what that does is it emits a wave. It emits a certain frequency of kind of like a sound wave. And so I have that diagrammed here. And so if a vehicle is not moving, if it's not stationary, if it is stationary and not moving, and a radar emits a wave out, it's going to be one particular frequency. And we know what that number is because it's programmed, it's calibrated, or it should be into that radar gun. And so it emits a beam. When a vehicle is moving towards the radar gun, so let's say an officer is parked in the median and a vehicle is passing by that officer, and he's in the proper radar mode and he's measuring that radar speed. When that beam goes out of the radar gun and it bounces off of a vehicle and goes back to the gun, the frequency that you may have seen here, because we know what that is now going to be condensed, because as the vehicle is coming closer to that radar gun, it's going to compress that wave. Similarly, if a vehicle is going away from the radar gun, as you can see in this bottom diagram here, the wave is going to be elongated by the time it goes back to the radar gun. So that's essentially how it works. Now, in most civil cases, that's enough. That's all that the government needs to prove. They just go into court and they say, my radar gun was working, I pointed at it, I shot it, it spit out a number, or it was in my vehicle, or whatever that is that the police go through, but they don't really know much about how that works. Some of them do. But it's important to understand that this is what's happening. All right. So when it's a criminal case, that sort of standard line that the police have, that it just works, they pick it up, they shoot it, it works. That may work in a civil case, but in a criminal case, it's actually a lot more precise. There's a lot more work that they need to do in order to explain how this works and to make sure that it's working properly. So down here, I have a couple of different ways that we can beat radar, or we can prevent the radar evidence from coming into court against you, and I want to review what those are. Number one is the usage. Did the officer know how to use it? It's just like a hammer. You can have a hammer, it can perform a function, but if you don't know how to smash a nail with it or how to break something that you want to do with it, it's an irrelevant tool. So if the officer is in the wrong mode, or if he's not using it correctly, that's a big problem. And so in a criminal case, unlike a civil case, we have the ability to interview the officer. We can have a full conversation with them, have it recorded, and probe whether or not they're using it properly. You can do that in a criminal case. You can also see whether or not that device was properly calibrated, if it's been properly maintained. Different police agencies have different rules on when they have to maintain and pull equipment out of service in order to calibrate it and put it back into service. So we can check those records. We also want to see, once we have checked those records, are those records going to be admissible? Meaning, can we get that paper document actually into court? It's called admissibility. We also want to see whether it's authentic. Can they prove that the person who is calibrating it, who's completing that paperwork, is it authenticated? Is it admissible? Can they get that into court? You can't just come into court and bring anything you want into court and show it to the judge. You just can't do that. You have to make sure there's a proper chain or there's some sort of an exception in order to get that document that's outside of court into court. So just because you're being charged with a crime and because the radar may have been working doesn't mean that the prosecutor or the judge or the defense attorney is going to allow that document to get into court. Similarly, can the officer articulate any of this stuff? Can the officer talk about the Doppler effect or talk about the cone, that the width of the cone that the radar gun admits, or whether there's other traffic that the radar beam may have been bouncing back off of instead of your vehicle? Could it have been somebody else's vehicle? Can an officer articulate any of that? Some of them can, some of them can't. But it's important they do that because this is a criminal case. This is not something where they can just say, it just works because. It's criminal. They have to prove their elements, all of these elements, beyond a reasonable doubt. Similarly, line of sight. Is the officer in a position where he can point the radar gun at something without something else interfering it? Can he point it at this vehicle without there being a tree here, or a semi-truck, or a series of other vehicles, or other traffic? Or is there anything else in the way that could have been problematic and could have interfered with this radar beam? Also, sometimes we will see the police using wrong equipment numbers. So they'll say that they used equipment A, we'll get the calibration records for equipment B, and we don't really know what equipment was used in the actual traffic stop or to make these observations. And so if you can't identify that, that can be a big problem because now any of the equipment that we have is unreliable. So you want to make sure that the numbers all match in order for the equipment to be considered to be reliable and admissible against you. And similarly, we want to look at what other evidence is around in a police officer's case. So did the vehicle have dash cam footage? Did the vehicle have GPS data? Does the vehicle have AVL data, automatic vehicle location data? Can we get all of that? And if we do, does it match everything else? So if an officer is saying that you were going 100 miles an hour, but he only had to go 95 to catch up to that vehicle, something's missing there. Does the GPS data match what the officer's report says? Many times the police will say that they were seated at one location, but the GPS data shows they were across the street, or they were not in the median at all. They were pulling around doing a U-turn on a bridge. We're able to get all of that because this is a criminal case. We have a right to review all of that material. And it's important that you're very thorough because a lot of the times these things don't match. You have to remember these officers, when they're doing these traffic patrols for criminal speeding or reckless driving or even DUIs, a lot of the times what they'll be doing is they'll be doing multiple stops, stop after stop after stop after stop for an entire shift. And so some of their record keeping can be a little bit sloppy, or it's just something that they just forget to document very, very thoroughly. And similarly, we want to see sometimes the equipment will be taken out of an officer's custody. It will be time to go service it. There will be a problem with it. We have had few occasions where officers have admitted on the stand that they were using equipment that seemed like it was a little bit wonky, like it wasn't working properly. And quite frankly, it's to their credit that they were so honest about it that they said, yes, my equipment was not working properly. I thought it was working well enough. That's why I wrote the ticket. But quite frankly, there were some errors in there. And sometimes that will only come out during the interviews or during even a trial. So some people will come to our office and they'll say, look, I was sighted on radar. It appears that I was speeding. I didn't realize it. It was a mistake. What can I do? Is there anything I can do? Well, I always like to remind people, it's not our job to disprove anything, whether you're going 100 or 150. It doesn't matter. The point is they've got to prove their case. When you come to our office and when you're charged with a crime, you are innocent unless you've pled guilty or unless a judge finds you guilty. You're 100% innocent. It's one of the beauties of American law. But it's their job to prove all of these elements. They have to cross that line. They have to meet that burden. Don't shift that back and put it on us to disprove it. They need to say it was working. They need to say the officer was using it properly. They need to say that they maintained it properly. The government needs to say that this officer knew what he was doing, and they need to get that evidence into court against you. And until they can do all of those things, you are innocent. So if you find yourself in this situation, if you want to speak with our team specifically about how any of these principles can apply to your case, give our office a call. We offer free case evaluations, and we're happy to sit down with you. Thanks for watching.